Hey audio students, so in the last video I showed you how to create a session and how to create a master fader track. So this video is going to kind of talk about how you can actually start recording into Pro Tools itself, and there's a couple of different settings that you want to double check. So a lot of you are probably checking out the podcast kit from the Becca Cage, and what the kit has is basically an audio interface, right? The box that allows you to record onto the computer, and then you have a microphone, and then you have headphones, right? So the audio interface is made by a company called Focusrite, and so once you plug that into your computer, you should be good to go, right? But you need to tell Pro Tools to look at the Focusrite to record, and so there's a couple of things that you might want to check, right? So if you go to Setup and then you go to Playback Engine, over here on your Playback Engine should say something like Focusrite, and so if it doesn't, you want to click this, and then there's going to be a drop down, and it's going to give you, some options over here, and you want to click the one that refers to the audio interface that you're using. So if it's a Focusrite, it might say something like Focusrite over here. If you're using an Apollo or something like that, it would show Apollo over here, and that's the one that you want to create. So that's the first thing that you want to do, right? So go to your playback engine, choose the right playback engine, and then hit OK. And then for your buffer size, you want to remain as low as possible. So if you click this, it should give you some more choices. So you can stay at 256 or 128 samples, and then hit OK. That's going to allow you to record with the most minimal amount of latency. And then the next thing that you want to do is just create a vocal track, right? So let's create a new track, and let's make sure it's a mono audio track, and then we can name this VO. And then we can hit create. So once you create the VO track, this is the track that you're actually going to record in, right? So the first thing that you want to do is you want to make sure that over here, the input, it's set to whatever input that your Focusrite is set to. So for example, if you put your microphone onto the input 1 of the Focusrite, on your input over here, it should say something like Focusrite input 1. Or it might just say input 1 or something like that. That's the one that you want to create. And that just says, hey, this track is looking at the first input of your Focusrite A to D converter, right? So click the input, make sure that it's set to input 1. It might say Focusrite 1, it might say like mono input 1, something like that. So that's the one that you want to use, right? In my case, it's actually 7. That's just where my inputs start in Pro Tools. So that's kind of how that goes. Little different. And I could actually see if I could plug in a microphone right now as we speak, which I'm doing. Give me a sec here. Check, check, check. So cool. I'm seeing some signal on my RME Fireface, so I'm going to go to input 7 here. Okay, and this should work. And so once you have it on input 7, you have a couple of different things. This I right here, check, check, check. This I kind of just shows you, is there signal in my microphone, basically? Am I seeing any signal, right? And so that's what this I means. And the I stands for input monitoring. But if you actually want to try to record, you have to hit the record button over here. And then when you click this record button, I'm going to go ahead and turn this off. I think my mic cable is not working correctly. When you actually hit the record button, it's armed and it's just flashing, and that means it's basically on standby, right? So you're not actually doing any recording yet. So once you're ready to record, right, you can go to the beginning of the session, and you can use the transport menu to record. So if you don't see this, you want to go to Window, and then you want to go to Transport right here. And then once you have this here, then you can go ahead and hit record and play. And then Pro Tools is actually going to start to record. So check 1, 2, check, check, check. And as you can see, the WAV files are being drawn onto my Pro Tools session. So that's basically it. And then you could, stop, and then you could delete, and then you could re-record. All right, and that's kind of how the recording process is in Pro Tools. And you can record at many different spots, so you don't have to start from the beginning of the session. You can start from right here, hit record, hit play, check, 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 and that will be like another place in your sound design project or your VO narration project, right? So that's kind of how that works. If you do not see your inputs and outputs over here, you want to make sure you go to the little white box and you click the IO button right here so it's checked. Right, this little white box on the top left over here is going to make anything visible that's on this menu over here. So just make sure you check that if you don't see anything here. I hope this helps, and if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. All right, well, take care.